If you've ever felt awkward when asked to give money to the church, or felt a little guilt or unease watching that collection plate come down the aisle, or have just been turned off by the sheer amount of money being collected by some of these mega churches, what if I told you that Buddhism completely flips that on its head? When I left the Catholic Church, I thought all religion was just a transaction of guilt. But living in Southeast Asia taught me a lesson about generosity that completely shattered my American viewpoint, and I hope it can help you too. When I first moved to Thailand, I'll admit I completely misread the monks. To a Western eye conditioned to measure human worth by productivity, they look pathetic. Shaved heads, bare feet, walking the streets every morning, just to collect their breakfast. And to me, I saw it as begging. But then one morning, in the middle of Ramkhamhaeng Soi 166, outside of Bangkok where I lived, I kind of had an epiphany. I just sat and kind of observed the monks, the line of monks in their saffron robes, and I observed the people who were making the offerings. And what I noticed is that the monks, they weren't begging, they were providing the opportunity for the people to make merit. They were providing the opportunity for the people to give in order to sort of cleanse their own souls, if you will. And it was kind of eye-opening and amazing. The people would bow to the monks, young and old, and the monks essentially hold the bowl not to get their money, not to get their breakfast, but to allow other people to practice their generosity. And it hit me right there. This religion is beautiful, and my lens was broken. And I saw this across Southeast Asia. I lived in Thailand, but I traveled to Laos, to Cambodia, to Myanmar, and it was the same basic thing happening with these monks and the people making the offerings. Welcome to the Altarless Traveler, a space for the spiritually curious, the questioners, and the deconstructors. This is part 3 of our series. We've covered Catholics and Muslims, trying to learn what these ancient traditional religions have to offer us today. To understand how Buddhism captured 500,000 minds, we first have to look at how it fills the map. If you look at a standard percentage map, Southeast Asia dominates Buddhism. Cambodia is 97%, Thailand is 94%, and Myanmar sits at 89%. Here, it is the literal air they breathe. But switch to a population cartogram, and the geography warps. Instead of showing physical landmass, a cartogram inflates or shrinks countries based purely on their numbers. See that thin stick figure on the left? That's the Americas, shriveled down because relatively few Buddhists live there. The Western world practically vanishes while East and Southeast Asia balloon to take over nearly the entire map. China alone holds nearly 250 million practitioners. That's roughly half of every Buddhist on earth. And no, I'm not talking about the cheerful, round, laughing Buddha statue you see at your local restaurant. That was actually a 10th century Chinese monk named Buddha. I mean the historical Siddhartha Gautama, whose core insights still shape how hundreds of millions of people view existence today. Though the overall numbers are small, at around 4 million followers, in a bizarre twist of spiritual migration, the Buddhist population in the U.S. is growing faster than many traditional Western faiths. Why? Part of it is simply changing demographics, but even more relevant, it's a shift away from rigid, organized religion and toward a more personal form of spirituality. So why does all this matter to an altarless traveler? Because the core features of Buddhism completely change how you view your everyday existence. Take karma, for instance. In the West, we kind of laugh about it. We joke about it like karma's going to get you. But living in Thailand taught me it's actually treated as an immediate, practical scale. It's a practical matter. It's an ongoing daily rhythm of keeping your life balanced. There's a profound sense of peace and calm that comes with that surrender. I remember taking long walks along the Klong. The Klong is a canal. The canal's used for transportation, boats go through, but people live all along the canal in homes made of sheet metal and scrap board. They have no electricity. They have really no cleaning water, and their homes patched together. I remember at first all I could think was pity for this poverty. But that was my own bias from my expectations growing up as an American. I remember one time I was crossing a bridge over the Klong, and my son had outgrown his bicycle and had gotten a new one, and his bike was still in great shape. So we had walked the Klong until we found a young boy to give it to. The boy was super excited. He ran off with his bike down the little narrow concrete trails of the Klong. And while we were crossing back, before we could get home, this old gentleman, turned out it was his grandfather, comes rowing across the canal in a boat. And he was yelling at us. We didn't understand him, but he's yelling at us. And he gave us this bottle of homemade wine in exchange. He had to balance how he felt. Us giving a gift, he needed to give a gift. That was quite beautiful. Now, combine that practical karma with the concept of reincarnation. In the West, we're conditioned to view this single lifetime as an anxious, hyper-competitive sprint to hoard resources before our death. But if this single lifetime isn't your only shot at existence, the pressure kind of vanishes. You realize you have time and you can relax and enjoy the process more. And that brings us to the ultimate goal, Nirvana. It isn't a pearly gate heaven where you get to keep your identity, you get to keep your mansion, and you get to keep your ego. No, it is literally translated as a blowing out of flame. It is the ultimate letting go of the constant burning of desire. It brings up to a big debate in the spiritual community. Is Buddhism even a religion at all, absent a god or absent a central authority governing the entire belief system? Is it a religion? Because many people consider it more of a philosophy or a psychology. And after I'd left Catholicism and I started looking for a new path, I started looking more into Buddhism, and for a while I actually called myself a Christian Buddhist, though I'm sure that's technically not a thing. But what I wanted to do was combine the ethical teachings of Jesus with sort of the practical advice of Buddhism, the sense of peace and calm with Buddhism, and have them both be my own religion. But eventually I decided I didn't need to label myself as a Christian Buddhist, or didn't need to label myself really as anything at all. I did come to see the distinctions between the West and the East. And in the West, especially in the United States, we worship the hustle. We live in a place where one single person, one tech titan, can become a trillionaire while half the population is struggling to get by, and while millions are struggling just for food and shelter. And we just don't tolerate this massive wealth gap. We worship it. We actively praise and explain it away as human nature. And if that's the ultimate goal of humanity, to acquire more wealth, more goods, more resources, to hoard them, to get more than our neighbor, then I'm ashamed we ever called it progress. Far too many people equate wealth with worth. And that's one thing I love about Southeast Asia, and especially Thailand. Living there convinced me that that does not have to be the case. I lived among communities in Thailand where people lacked indoor plumbing, where they went day to day just for the food they were going to eat. By our rigid Western standards, they were living in deep poverty. It honestly reminded me of an arrogant old Western joke. Look at them. They're so miserable, they don't even know it. Except when you actually look closer, they weren't miserable at all. They possessed a profound, unshakable happiness that was rooted entirely in the fluid rhythm of the present moment. Buddhism taught me to stop gripping tomorrow so tightly, to open my hands and open my mind and appreciate both what I do have and the beauty behind it all. maybe the people who have absolutely nothing left to lose, or the ones among us who are absolutely free. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell us anything you know about Buddhism or anything else you'd like to share. Next week, we're going to take a deep dive into Judaism as I explore my time living in Israel. Thank you.